Global sperm counts have declined by over 50% in the last 40 years. Is that true?
It really is. I think, in the last few years, there's been a lot of consensus around that. One of the most famous studies that looked at this was published in the 90s. And, when it was released, I've talked to some of the authors about it. There was a lot of fanfare around it. They had it in a big media hall, there were television cameras. But since then, there was a lot of controversy around it. For a few reasons. There are differences in semen quality around the world. Like, for example, there was a study in the United States that showed, if you can believe it, sperm quality is higher in New York than in the Midwest. And I think reasons for that are not certain, whether it's lifestyle, activity levels, there may be differences in, just sort of race ethnicity composition. I think the reasons are not known, but in the US, we see that, but around the world, we see that too. And so there were some concerns about how all that was incorporated to some of these studies. You can imagine over 40 years, some of the methodology for testing sperm has probably improved a little bit. And even our, statistical methodologies, computational abilities have improved. So, initially in the 90s, I think it was somewhat controversial. Even some of my mentors questioned this. But I would say over the last, few years, there's another study in 2017, then even 2023 most recently, and it's really kind of solidified. And now there's consensus in the field that we're seeing this decline. Over the last 50 years, maybe it's called about 1%. So maybe about 1 million less sperm per year on average every year. But over the last, 10, 20 years, it's accelerated actually about 2% decline. And so I think it's, now that there's a little more, again, sort of consensus around it, I think it's really up to us to understand why, because, it's not a good thing existentially.